Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all doing well, and it's a real pleasure to join you or to join your avatars in this wonderful event. And I hope that we get to meet in person at some point in time soon. So let me give you some thoughts today um, on buzzwords, words and overkills. So everybody's talking about entrepreneurship, creativity, innovation, and those kinds of words. So what I wanted to tell you about today is basically few things that we learned from our experience at AUC and working at AUC Venture-Lab. There are several trends that we're seeing that are coming our way. Those trends are basically shaping what business schools look like. So let me just tell you about four trends that we're seeing, and those are becoming probably normal part of what we do, but then they're changing the way that we do or need to do business. So uh, first thing, I hope that the mic is okay. Okay, so first thing, um, traditionally, business schools were prepared or prepare students for jobs in corporate, jobs in sometimes in other types of organizations, whether government or other types of organizations. But now we're starting to see entrepreneurship emerging as a new career choice. Many students are looking at becoming entrepreneurs, and the question is, how do we prepare them for something like that? There's a startup revolution that's happening everywhere in the world. Startups are becoming a big part of creating value, and people are thinking about joining startups much earlier in their career, sometimes becoming entrepreneurs themselves, and sometimes just joining a startup at an earlier point in their career. So the question is, how do we prepare entrepreneurs as coming out of our universities? A second, a second trend that's happening and we're all seeing, and that's becoming a normal part of our everyday teaching, is that entrepreneurship and innovation as a skill, as a behavior, is becoming desirable for pretty much everybody in industry. So if you work in a large corporation, if you work in any type of job, people are looking for entrepreneurial behavior, innovative behavior. So what changes is that creating for us on our teaching, learning, pedagogy, and so on? So that entrepreneurial or innovation or behavioral aspect is actually becoming a big demand in what we're doing. Uh, so that's jumping to all the discussions on curricula, programs, and so on. Third thing, which is the university as an incubator. So we're talking about startups, we're talking about the venture creation process. Traditionally, venture creation did not occur in universities. Universities were a catalyst for creating knowledge and teaching and learning, but they were not the place where ventures were created, new startups, except for a small number of research-oriented universities, and it was more around commercializing that research. But now we're seeing a lot more that's happening on having the university itself as a platform, an incubator, whatever you want to call it, for launching startups. And we're seeing universities take a bigger role in that, whether by creating their own programs, accelerators, incubators, and the like, or even getting into the venture capital investment part, getting into providing spaces for entrepreneurs, and thinking about the university campus itself as a space, as a platform for creating startups. We have, as universities, the talent and knowledge that are necessary for creating startups. The question is, do we add to it capital, and we add to it catalysts, platforms like accelerators and incubators and the like that help in catalyzing that process. And then there's the fourth part, which we're starting to see on some universities, a very small number of them, but it's people are starting to think about it, which is, can startups or university venture capital actually become or offer a new alternative source of funding over the long term for universities? Everybody's challenged as universities and the sources of funding, and people are thinking about this as a way to actually capitalize on our investments in knowledge and capital that can actually lead the university to capture part of the business, part of the value that is created by that. So if you look at those trends, you'll find that the role of the university in that space is changing. we're adding those buzzwords. We're talking about entrepreneurship, we're talking about innovation, but in what context? In the context of the students having different career choices, or the corporates requiring different skill sets, or the university acting as a platform for the venture creation, or even changing the university economic business model. So now, what are the implications for that? What does that mean for us as educators, people who are actually running business schools, people who are working in business schools? There are different levels where it's affecting our job. First, on the admissions side, most of the admissions parts are targeted towards traditional uh, assessment ways. The question is, how can we choose people who have higher prominent and higher entrepreneurial potential? That's a big question. Do we include that in our choices? Do we include that in our exams, in our assessment? Are we looking for it, or are we looking for traditional academic achievement as a way of admission? Second thing, when we look at our programs, some schools are going with the path of creating programs around entrepreneurship, but everybody is looking at uh, introducing entrepreneurship as part of all the programs that we have. So, are we bringing those entrepreneurial skills into all of the programs? Are we introducing courses on entrepreneurship in all of the programs? Third thing are questions around pedagogy, teaching and learning. A lot of us, when we go to our classroom, there is the challenge of how do we actually introduce entrepreneurship in the classroom. And we're talking about two different types of entrepreneurship in the classroom. We're talking about specific courses about venture creation, but we're also talking about broader entrepreneurial skills in pretty much all courses and all programs. Um, and those are actually requiring a lot of changes in curricula, changes in pedagogy, changes in teaching and learning. And the fourth point is about partnerships. Uh, what kinds of industry partnerships do we need beyond other partnerships with other academic institutions? Do we start looking at partnerships with venture capital models, venture capital organizations? Do we start looking at other types of partnerships? So at AUC, at the American University in Cairo, over the past decade, we started from just creating simple programs that create awareness around entrepreneurship, whether for our students or for our community, to now running a lot of programs, academic programs, undergraduate and graduate, focusing on entrepreneurship, introducing entrepreneurship courses to pretty much half of the university, people outside of business majors, so it's pushing that skills, but also running our acceleration program. We've accelerated more than 210 startups, and we're seeing some of them getting serious traction in the market, more than $100 million raised in investment, and similar amount in funding, and more than 8,000 jobs created. So we're starting to ask ourselves, what is next for us as a university in terms of thinking of our role, and how can we actually expand that role, and where does the university play in that space? So I'll leave you with those thoughts, and I look forward to questions and answers. Thank you, everybody.
All right, I believe it's my turn now. Let me see if I can turn on the camera in the meantime. I believe you can see me now. So my name is Milton Sousa. Very nice to see you all, at least the avatars facing me at the stage. It's a great pleasure to be here with Eduniversal, and unfortunately we cannot welcome you at our campus in Lisbon, but at least you can get a sort of a glimpse into what we're doing, and you are of course more than welcome to visit us at some point in the future. I'm here to give a few words about my take on entrepreneurship, and whether it's a buzzword or it's really something that has become mainstream and critical, if you want, in how we face, how we approach education in general. I think Ayman already mentioned a few important aspects with which we fully concur. The first of all is that indeed, entrepreneurship has gone beyond just being a discipline in management or in business, but to become actually a transferable skill. And that's something that we see happening quite a lot with the traditional corporations demanding more and more that graduate students and business students come prepared already with a set of entrepreneurial skills that allow them to be more innovative and disruptive themselves. So that's something that we see becoming quite an important aspect of employability as well, so that students come out prepared to face that new reality. Also, the way corporations are rearranging their processes, they're becoming far more entrepreneurial themselves. They're incorporating their own incubators, corporate venturing departments. So there's clearly a need for people with entrepreneurial skills, and of course, business schools have been adjusting to that. Next to that, we see that business schools can and should play a role as a catalyst to accelerate entrepreneurship. Just like Ayman referred, we also have our own initiatives to stimulate students and other people to join in this on this path of entrepreneurship and to set up their own companies and ventures with us. Universities have a very important role to play there, because they are also hubs of knowledge and of experts coming from all over the world often, and also from different walks of life and different sectors. So we think that business schools can play a prominent role in promoting entrepreneurship and stimulating also the economic ecosystem locally. So these are some initial thoughts to share my agreement with what was been said already so far. Also, on top of that, I'd like to take on two additional items that I think are important when you talk about entrepreneurship in the context of education. The first of all is that we see it as also as a leadership development process. And we have been using entrepreneurial type of projects and courses and classes and initiatives also as a platform to help our students develop their leadership skills in general. We see many of the traits of successful entrepreneurs as being and behaviors as being skills as being critical for a successful leadership out there. And we've been using that quite extensively at Nova. And also linking to what Victoria mentioned in the beginning, the importance of making choices and being aware of the risks you're taking, but also not to be stalled and be paralyzed by the amount of options you have. And successful entrepreneurs are, in essence, in our view, good at making choices. Not to say that they always make it right, most likely not, but they one thing they do have is that they are very much willing to learn, and they have this growth mindset that allows them to adopt failure as an opportunity to grow and to learn further. And in our view, that is not only important in the context of entrepreneurship, but actually in the context of how you develop your careers moving forward with all the uncertainties that we have. So we see entrepreneurial classes and courses and processes as a good way to practice decision-making and assessing risks, and also being very much aware of what you care about and your values. Just to reinforce, I guess, the idea that entrepreneurship is a transferable skill, and you can see it in many, many different angles. Finally, we at Nova are tapping on this new trend, which is becoming quite strong, at least in Portugal, we see that, of social entrepreneurship. So in fact, not only entrepreneurship can be seen as a discipline, it can be seen as a strategic choice, it can also be seen as a transferable skill, but actually in the last, say, 5 to 10 years, we see it becoming increasingly an important tool for social impact through business. So in fact, we at Nova, we stimulate students to think about ways of using business to create an impact. We invite social entrepreneurs to join us in that process. So we have various projects and various courses involving social entrepreneurs out there. And by the way, also an interesting platform to discuss about career choices, because many of them stepped out of the corporate world to engage in a social entrepreneurship career. And we also engage with larger institutions in promoting social entrepreneurship in the area of Lisbon and in Portugal in general. Just to give you an example, we have a project called Leapfrog with the BPI La Caixa, Portuguese Spanish bank, that is there to support dozens of social entrepreneurs and giving them management skills and knowledge for them to become even more relevant in society. And we integrate that as part of our program. So we see that entrepreneurship has become also a means to incorporate debates around the role of business in society, topics on sustainability, topics on social development. So we see that entrepreneurship as a concept has multiple dimensions. And we've been using it quite extensively through the means of entrepreneurship to address all these aspects. So as a transferable skill in corporate life, as a discipline on its own to promote entrepreneurship in Lisbon and in Portugal, as a leadership development platform, and finally, as a means to rethink the role of business in society itself. So we think that definitely this is not just a buzzword for us. We see it as an integral part of our impact-driven strategy. With that, I would like to maybe move now the floor for possible questions. So thank you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ayman Ismail and Professor Milton Sousa. Dear participants, if you have any questions,